they had another one of these gaggles of the weaponization of the federal government bullshit. Um, I'm glad you guys agree with Ficus that the ass of the rat is the most tender part. And you should eat. You should see him throw down on a bowl of Cheerios. It's disturbing. Anyways, speaking of people who could fuck a Cheerio and not break it, let me give you a, a Democrat and then two of the biggest doofuses we see on the regular. Now, and I don't know if he's going to play a clip for this because I don't pre-watch these clips. By the way, you're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide, and I think that shows taste and breeding on your part. Like, subscribe. That Venmo's there for a reason. I'm just saying you could just buy me a cup of coffee if you felt like it. Take the cup of coffee challenge today. But this is Glenn, I don't know, doing a Godfather impersonation again or just confused. And Matt Taibbi sat down for this thing with Schellenberger talking about their censorship industrial complex. Ironically, the CIC, the same name as the Chinese Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now, let's say you were trying to create a smokescreen in the news for your idea or someone else's. Naming it after something that's also big in the news and might send someone down a rabbit hole or align with it and go, oh, or give them a big, I guess, adrenaline rush of fear. That's calling your thing the CIC while that CIC's out there flowing might actually do it. Might be the thing. Also, as we've seen in the Twitter files, the amount of like dumb fuckery, the idea that there's actual censorship going on when the FBI and the CIA and others were like, that's human trafficking. That's against your terms of service, isn't it? And most of the time, but not all of the time, Twitter and other social media sites said, oh yeah, that is. Yeah. Taibbi, interesting enough, in this hearing, and I watched part of this hearing, their opening statements and some of the questioning. Oddly enough, Taibbi looks like he's confused about why he's there and is really just being led around by Schellenberger, who seems to be the point person on this idiocy. That said, I don't know what part they play in this, but this is Glenn Beck saying they are operating government psyops on Americans. They being the Russians? Of course not. Don't be silly.
Yesterday, there was...
Oh my God, that's loud.
It was a very important hearing in Congress on the weaponization of the federal government. And I knew it would be a wake-up call.
Okay, first of all, yesterday, it was, I think it's the day before yesterday. Now, it was not important. It was a rehash of the same shit.
About how close we are to living Orwell's 1984.
Shut the fuck up. All right. The winner of the most tired fucking analogy goes to 1984. This is just bullshit. This is like the most lazy pop culture reference you could possibly put in. It's like, I'm so over this shit. No, we don't live in 1984, you dumbass. Not at all. Not even close. If it was true, if it was even remotely close to true, you couldn't even make reference to 1984, you tit.
But in a surprising way, it was even more disturbing to me. And, you know,
why? Did they use 3-syllable words or
in the super boring way that all government hearings are?
It wasn't boring. It was tedious.
I'm going to spare you from having to watch all of it. I have clips from it.
Right. You didn't watch it. Someone else gathered clips and showed you, and you did a little freak out, and then they arranged them. Shut the fuck up. There's no way he sat through the whole thing.
And then go watch all of it.
Yeah, right. But not while you're watching this. Don't leave.
I want to summarize what happened. The hearing started with a speech from the Democrat ranking member about how there is absolutely, positively, zero evidence that the government colluded with social media to censor people. Okay, this was the first 5 minutes. My eyes were ready to pop out of my head. But this...
Right, they pulled the clip for him. He didn't watch that. And that's not a good characterization of what was said, but it's true though.
This is old news. We already know there's evidence. We've already
No, you don't.
seen the Twitter files and everything else.
Yes, and they showed no such thing. The Twitter files were ass. They were a child's understanding of sunburn. They were moronic at best and foolish and overtly, I would say overtly naive at best. Like it's like intentional naivete, where they're like, let's just do some faux pearl clutching and pretend there's no reality in the world.
But then she continued on that theme, and then the Democratic committee members decided to talk about, instead of the government colluding with social media to strangle the First Amendment to death, they didn't.
Which never happened, or you wouldn't be talking into a microphone with your fucking initials on it.
They didn't want to talk about that. They wanted to talk about.
Yeah, why would you want to? Oh, for fuck's sake! All right. The reason they wouldn't want to talk about it is because it didn't happen. It's not happening. It hasn't happened. If any of it was even remotely close to what they were talking about, you wouldn't even be able to discuss it. That's the whole point. The fact that this motherfucker is talking into a microphone on the Blaze network, which has not been shut down, corralled, limited in any fucking way, is proof positive that this has nothing to do with free speech, and that there are terms of service on some of these social media websites, and they either agree with you that something violates their terms of service or are bad for business, which is the other factor, or they don't. That's it.
Donald Trump. Seriously. They brought in a witness, a former Homeland Security and counterterrorism advisor to Mike Pence, to talk about how Trump is literally Hitler.
In your testimony, you cited violent language, increasingly incendiary language being invoked by President Trump about his so-called enemies. One of the words he used was vermin. What does that echo in your mind? Anyone else come to mind historically who referred to enemies of the state as vermin?
Yes, the horrible Hitler.
And Goebbels.
Yeah, and Stalin and probably Mao.
No, not probably, motherfucker. You don't get to probably this. Who did it specifically, shitheel? Hitler and Goebbels specifically used that word for a reason. And it's a different word in German than it is in Russian and than it is in Chinese, right? You don't get to just go, yeah, probably other people have used it. Who did specifically? Who made it famous, I think, is the key. Yeah. I'm sure somewhere in the world, at some point in history, before 1981, somebody said, go ahead, make my day, or I'll be back. But it didn't quite reach the zeitgeist. And when people refer to it, who are they pegging those lines to? Charlie fucking Chaplin?
Not good people. Not good people.
Right. And Trump is echoing not good people. Thanks.
But here she is echoing what every Democratic member said, other than that Trump is Hitler. He wants to ban all Muslims, overthrow the government, and he's going to start exterminating people.
Okay, first of all, nobody said he is Hitler. He's using the language of Hitler. And he's either doing it on purpose, which is disgusting, or he's so fucking stupid and vile that he's naturally come to the same conclusion as Hitler about his enemies, or about other people from, just foreigners in general.
Now, here's the second part of her testimony.
Weaponization of the federal government is a serious topic that requires sober analysis.
First of all, that wasn't the second part of the testimony. You played a question from the question and answer, which happened after this. Not that it matters, but this is just fucking weird, for no reason. Just this, you didn't show the beginning of her testimony. You're not showing the second part. All right, never mind.
Unfortunately, what we see here today, and what we have seen from this committee over the past year, is instead a politically motivated fantasy detached from reality. Members of this committee and their witnesses make grand and vague accusations about government censorship.
Yeah, this is all true, by the way.
But those foggy allegations are refuted by the facts that private social media companies moderating content on their own private platforms is not government censorship.
Oh my gosh.
It is those private companies exercising their own First Amendment rights to rid their platforms of misinformation.
There is a treasure trove of documents.
No, there is not.
You will not believe when you go down this rabbit hole, and you must.
He hasn't. He has not. He's read half, at best, he's read half of Matt Taibbi's first Substack on this shit. This is like them saying there's so much evidence that Biden and Hunter were in business together. You're like, no, there isn't. You have information about loans they paid back or interfamily financial stuff. None of it points to a scheme or contracted behavior or changed behavior that came from bribery, extortion, or any kind of grand scheme for payments, for a pay-to-play or influence peddling. None of that. It's just information until you actually have a crime, and there is none. In this same thing, there's no fucking way he actually has gone through the Twitter files, because I have, and we covered them. It's idiocy. It's cartoonish, and the worst part about it is it's this false naivete. They like enforce a level of like, can you imagine something like this? Well, yeah, I can imagine the FBI being worried about human trafficking or calls to like jihad-like violence or another 9/11 being, organized in the DMs on fucking Twitter and the like, or another January 6th, even for that matter, because I'm not fucking stupid. Of course they would use those kind of things. Those available tools, of course you're going to have access. So why in the fuck would they assume that nobody's no, this wouldn't occur to anyone. Like,
must go down this rabbit hole. When you go down the rabbit hole of what
is it a rabbit hole though? Is that the important thing? It's a rabbit hole. By the way, I'm just saying in probably too fine a criticism of his pop culture references, down the rabbit hole is madness. It's disconnected. It's fantastical. It's farce. It's like saying when you go up this tornado in The Wizard of Oz.
It was released this week, and I'm going to go into it here in a second. You will see the actual documents and emails. All right. It was like watching two unrelated hearings playing over each other at the same time. At one moment,
fabulous. Let's hear it.
There were witnesses talking about how our government is using psychological warfare against its own citizens.
Right, obviously, and you're not a victim of that because you're immune to it. Everybody else, though, are easily stunned sheep, and if we don't see a story one place, we won't bother to go look it up anywhere else, and there's no Streisand effect. There's no instant rebellion effect in the American populace. If the government tells us to do something, we just all stand still. Get the fuck. But you are the one person free of all this. The one person who can see through the muck. Thank God Glenn Beck is here to save us all from being dough-headed fucks. Meanwhile, say rabbit hole again, motherfucker. Say rabbit hole again.
And then, boom, Trump is Hitler.
Well, for the record, he's too fat to be Hitler and also too old. For all the people who are like, this is how Hitler came to power. Like he lost the first time and then he came back and he did something terrible and stuff. Yeah, but he wasn't in his 70s and obviously on a hard fucking fade. So I'm not worried.
We live in two separate realities.
Yeah, that's true. We live in an actual reality, and you live up a fucking unicorn's ass. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Get to it!
It's like half the country recently came from an alternate universe.
Jesus Christ, he's reading this off the paper. Can't just say rabbit hole again? You can't just say rabbit hole again? Say rabbit hole again, motherfucker! Say rabbit hole again!
Which got melded into ours in some cosmic storm, or I don't know, maybe this is global warming or something. And
Mandela effect. How do you miss that one? How do you in the fucking doped up conspiratorial world you live in, how do you not go, is this the Mandela effect? Jesus, it's like we've mixed universes. That's exactly what the Mandela effect is. Oh, shit. I cannot keep track of conspiracy theories for these dummies.
Sometimes the portal rips open and the two universes sit side by side, yet totally separate.
Yeah, that never happens. Not ever. Unless you're kind of, what are you, describing the Thanksgiving table where you sit down and everybody there is like, the fuck's the matter with you?
We're talking about how social media is colluding with the government. This is not just censorship.
It's not censorship at all, dummy.
Colluding with the government, and the documents prove the U.S. intel and military industrial complex.
Oh, God. The military industrial complex. That's right. Yes, Boeing and Raytheon are sending memos to Twitter and Facebook to fuck me.
To literally change the way people in America think.
To literally not. No. If the only way this could possibly be true is if they concocted this whole fake chaos, this turmoil, this illusion of censorship just to drive people like you fucking bananas.
They are operating government psyops on Americans.
You know, it gets truer the more you make your hand go up and down. Don't let it freak you out that you're on the radio mostly and nobody is seeing it. Just keep doing the chop of the...
This is brainwashing. This is Manchurian candidate stuff. This is...
Yeah, you're running out of options here. Winter Soldier mind wipe. Fucking defragging your bleach bit. It's bleach. It's Hillary Clinton bleach bitting your fucking dome.
This is Ray Bradbury. This.
You can't just pull out a sci-fi writer, asshole. You got to be specific. This is fucking H.G. Wells kind of words on that books. This is like Philip K. Dick is in with a...
Where's Dick? Hi, Dick. Do we like Dick? Yes.
What?
You can tell he's like laughing at his own ignorance. He has no fucking idea.
This is the worst of the worst.
What? Leave Ray Bradbury alone. Why would you say... What do you mean the worst of the worst is Ray Bradbury? His stuff is excellent. Yeah, it's L. Ron Hubbard. That's the worst of the worst. No offense, Scientologists. Don't worry. I'm not coming down on you. Everyone's entitled to their own unique mistake.
And they didn't want to talk about it.
They didn't want to talk about Ray Bradbury or the worst of the worst or how the government is defragging your hard drive. I don't know why they didn't want to bring it up. Could it be because it's a stupid waste of time? Okay. Time is precious, and this conversation isn't.
This is a major issue.
Asshole, I think is what you mean. It's a major asshole, right?
Asshole.
That's right.
And we've got less than a year.
Less than a year? Well, then I guess you're fucked, because Biden's going to be president at least that long.
And if we don't solve this...
Glenn. Hey, come here, fuckhead. Let me tell you something. Don't roll this kind of bullshit out in front of people and give them a timeline of less than a year when you have a fucking Christmas tree behind you. Do you understand me? Don't start that shit when it is abundantly clear to everyone watching that you have never skipped a fucking dessert in your life, that you live a life of comfort and boredom most of the time. The fuck out of here. If you say shit like we got a year till the end of the fucking world, you better be gaunt, sweaty, dirty, and only talking to people through the lid of a submersed kerosene tank underneath the ground, you dipshit. What the fuck? Look at that Christmas tree. Nobody puts up the fucking tree. We got fucking 1 year left or whatever. Oh, one of the bulbs is out. Let's try it again. What? This one, let's do the white and yellow light Christmas tree this year or whatever. I don't know. I think we'll go traditional this time or whatever. Fucking put up a Christmas tree and tell me the years we're a year from the end of the world. Also, where's your faith? If the world's gonna end, let go and let God, dumb fuck. Shut your show down. Send me all your gear. I'll have a great time.
We're done.
You're already done, you fucking turkey.
Now, I watched two men who both
and one cup that I couldn't even bring myself to watch that. But I know it's one of Glenn's favorites.
think were both lefties. Okay, they were both Democrats and lefties at one point.
Oh, no, you mean Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi? Yeah, it's funny that these guys who once were lefties, who all of a sudden just kind of come to their senses at some point, always end up starting their career in Russia. Huh. One might think that they were, paid to come over here and kind of just, pretend to be on one side and then shift as a destabilizing act because somebody's got some, compromat on them or something like that. I don't know why I would think that, but
they are actual journalists, Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi.
Oh, when you said actual journalism, those are not the names that I thought would come up. They're fired journalists who now have a Substack, which is great. And hey, you know what the nice thing is? Anybody can have a Substack. That's the cool thing. And you don't have some pesky editor making you write stuff that either makes sense or stands up to, fact checks. It's so much easier.
Former Democrats debating with a Democratic congresswoman.
By the way, former Democrats, he says out loud, as if he hasn't said multiple times that Democrats fought for slavery and it was that Republicans were the party of Lincoln and Democrats have always been the party of like slavery and, and enslaving black people and blah, blah, blah. Like that's the Democrats. But these guys are, never mind.
Woman who, so help me, was arguing that because there was only 35% of URLs labeled, removed, or soft blocked, that was evidence that there's no censorship.
Yeah. Because it was a suggestion, not censorship. 35% of the time, the social media platforms, specifically Twitter in this case, agreed with the government's assessment. 35% of the time. And by the way, 35% of the time, and that's not even factual. 35% of the time, there was action on it. 18% of the time, the URLs or whatever they were removed. And again, you have to keep in mind that in and amongst this, with all this talk about Trump and the election and ivermectin and vaccines and blah, 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 a huge amount of this stuff is human trafficking shit, calls to violence, jihadi fucking ISIS posts, people posting beheading videos and revenge porn. That's in and amongst that 18% that's fucking taken down, just for the record. Like, these guys act like all of this was just like all Trump ads.
And you could hear Matt Taibbi say, kind of under his breath, 35% of the First Amendment. Okay.
Yeah, that's because he's stupid. It was only 35% of the time did they agree with the government's assessment or the suggestion. And again, only 18% got ultimately acted on and taken down.
But at the same time,
He won't play that clip, though. He will not. Fuck, this is dumb.
Pence's former advisor was saying the only weaponization of the government we need to worry about is Trump, who isn't even in the government right now.
Asshole. She was referring to the fact that he said when he gets in there, he's going to put loyalists in the DOJ and intentionally lock people up that were his political enemies on purpose, because that's what he's selling to the American people, that he's being tormented because of politics and not because of his shitty behavior, his rapiness, his absolute inability to shut his fucking trap when he's already been found liable for in a civil case where he slandered a woman that he sexually assaulted and stealing classified documents.
And since he's Hitler, wouldn't it be best to get a hold of this government censorship apparatus before your Hitler comes back?
Well, the idea is that that's not the default of the system. And by the way, it also didn't work. This asshole is also somebody who's told you that Biden's a tyrant, it's communism, basically it's already over, and he's being controlled by Obama, who did the exact same thing. He was a communist and a socialist, and he was doing all this shit. So that it's already threaded in there. There's already a control structure. There's already censorship. There's already, a totalitarian system just waiting for somebody to flip the switch. And Biden's just biding his time, at his age. He's waiting for the perfect day to release this.
I have to tell you, there was also this bizarre effort to equate free speech on the internet with horrific crimes. Listen to this. This is one Congresswoman, Democrat, asking Matt Taibbi if he was okay with having rape live streamed online.
Right. Because that's some of the stuff that was taken down. Don't act stupid. This is what I was talking about. This is this fucking artificial pearl clutching. This dumb fuck's like he would be for that. Asshole, that's part of the 18% that was taken down. That is the vast majority of the shit that is taken down. 100%, statistically speaking, most of the time, of that 18 to 20% of stuff that the government lets the social media companies know about that is either calls to violence or whatever that gets pulled down is exactly that. Remember those 4 kids that beat the special needs kid in Chicago? Remember that? And they live streamed it on Facebook? That was a right-wing talking point because the kids were black. So that was a right-wing talking point for a while. They would just play that video and this is what black kids are like. They did that on purpose. Okay. That was a live stream. That was from a live stream where these kids beat this kid on a live stream. That was one of the impetuses for them to be quicker in response. And Facebook often can jump on content that looks violent to the algorithm or to the censors when they're just like a huge screen up there and something gets flagged and then they immediately just kick it off and you lose your live stream even if it doesn't show that, where you can't even show referential violence because you're telling a news story or something like that because they don't want that to happen again. That's exactly what she was talking about.
Here it is.
Mr. Taibbi, yes or no? Should social media companies allow rape and murder to be live streamed by terrorists on their platforms in order to create fear and incite violence?
I believe that would violate their terms of service, would it not?
So your answer is no, it should not they should not be allowed to do that.
Live stream rape and murder? No,
Right.
I think that would count as speech that would be prohibited under their terms of service.
Good.
Okay, first of all, especially foreign terrorists or jihadis or whatever, they don't have the same rights as Americans. This is the other factor. Let me be abundantly clear. Not everybody in the world has the same free speech protections that Americans do, especially people posing as Americans. If the government finds out that somebody is saying they're an American when they are not, and they let the platform know this person is messing with political speech or whatever, but this is an account that's outside the country or comes from Russia, it's specifically there to fuck with people, that's not them. At no point is Twitter or anyone else denying that person their rights because they don't have them. They come from a country that doesn't have those. They are an agent working specifically to fuck with people under a false pretense. It is as if pretending to be a Nigerian prince who has $700,000 in an account and I just need your PIN number to get it out so I can send it to you. That's protected speech. That's the other argument. And again, this is the vast majority of stuff that gets taken down.
It's not speech. It's crime.
Okay, stupid. The display of it. When a terrorist kills someone on camera or sexually assaults someone, it's not just for the act of doing it. It is to send a message of fear and control and to, warn their opponents and to say, that their people are in the right to be able to do this. Dummy.
It's rape and murder. That's not
For a political purpose. For a political purpose.
not speech.
So, all right. So this, I should be able to just that I should be able to do this on live TV then, Glenn? If I come on the Blaze and I do this, will you cut away? You fucking dope. How about this, Glenn? How about I come on your show and I talk to you, and the whole time I'm on, because it's not speech, I'm not saying anything. I just got a crick in my finger. What do you want to do? So here I am, and I'm just going to, if I come on your show, I'm just sitting there, and I'm trying to have a conversation with you, and this is not about what I'm saying. I'm saying something, and you're trying to interrupt my speech. You're not going to let me. You're going to blur out some of what I'm showing on the Blaze when it's not speech.
I have to play one more clip of a Democratic congressman calling the whole thing a conspiracy, but in doing so, actually explained what was happening oh so very well.
If we really want to talk about the weaponization of the federal government, we should talk about it, and that's Donald Trump. That's not this grand, crazy conspiracy of how the administration has utilized the social media companies against whom the First Amendment does not apply in order to suppress speech.
Thank goodness many of the committee members.
All right, what did he promise with that clip? Let's back the fuck up. Glenn, shall we? Glenn, tell us again what this clip's going to show us. Yeah?
I have to play one more clip of a Democratic
He's going to play one more clip of a Democratic
congressman calling the whole thing a conspiracy.
Calling the whole thing a conspiracy, and then what does he do after he calls it a conspiracy, Glenn?
But in doing so, actually explained what was happening oh so very well.
Actually explained what was happening oh so very well. Let's hear it. That's his description of what Dan Goldman's about to say.
So if we really want to talk about the weaponization of the federal government, we should talk about it, and that's Donald Trump. That's not this grand, crazy conspiracy of how the administration has utilized the social media companies against whom the First Amendment does not apply in order to suppress speech.
Yeah, I don't know why that explains it oh so well. Why? Yes, if you were going to censor speech, technically, if you force a social media company to remove posts that they would otherwise leave up, that is not about the free speech of the people on the site. That is about the free speech of the owners of the company and the people they have put in charge of the content on there for, to raise ad revenue and to build the algorithm and to drive engagement and you throw a monkey wrench into the algorithm for every post you take down because there's no way to statistically factor in an algorithm stuff that was manually taken out by other humans for no other reason than it's just gone. Unless there's you could program and explain it to the algorithm like, sorry, that one went over the line. This doesn't explain that at all. He was explaining their conspiratorial idea, not what actually happened.
Thank goodness many of the committee members recognize that.
So an agency funded and created by the government, a partnership funded and created by the government's.
You'll get to it. Just keep saying.
Number one stated goal is to censor true information.
No, that is not their number one stated goal.
And whole narratives, whole ways of thinking.
Whole ways of thinking. There's a government agency that's set about destroying whole ways of thinking. Like, I don't know, the kind of ways of thinking that would suggest kids test gravity by stepping off a 3-story building, those ways of thinking. I mean, why wouldn't you want kids to, to really, you want them to have faith in science? What is this, a religion? They should test it for themselves.
That should terrify everybody, Democrat, Republican, independent.
Yes, it terrifies me that you and that asshole actually think something was said.
Independent, young, old, anybody else.
This is so critical to understand.
It is very critical.
Understand in whole thinking. This is
in whole thinking. Well, that explains your thinking, I think.
It's not about the old censorship. Twitter was censoring. That's not this.
Right, it wasn't.
There is censorship.
Not really.
But now we have added covert operations run and funded by the Pentagon, run by our military-industrial complex.
Again, explain to me how arms manufacturers are the people responsible for taking down tweets about ivermectin that Twitter took down some of the time and didn't other times?
In public-private partnerships to destroy the lives, not only the narrative, but to then destroy the lives of those who the government needs to be silenced, even if they know it to be true.
Sorry, you've said a lot of this dumb shit, Glenn. You seem to be doing all right. You know, very few political prisoners like Alexei Navalny have to wear a scarf to keep their waddle in check, you know? Just saying, you seem to be doing all right. Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi are both making money off of what they're talking about. They've been called in front of this Congress 3 times. They've in no way been damaged or in danger from the government.
Then active disinformation run by puppet voices and bots to get you to think a different way.
Yes, that's what always works. It's the hashtags. I don't even have to think. I just put a hashtag and then it's all done. And then I can go back to eating crackers. That's the best part.
And it's not just about misinformation that's
Jesus Christ. Dude, you haven't even made a point yet.
Out there. They want to block anyone on any narrative that might disagree with the government's.
Says the man talking to a microphone with his initials on it in front of a sign, an electronic sign that's at least 15 feet wide with his initials on it next to a Christmas tree while he wears suspenders and drinks from a giant super gulp Sonic cup in between breaks on his daily show.
Narrative, and do that in advance.
Yes. So, by the way, they're going to shut Glenn down any day now, but not for stuff that he said, stuff that he's going to say. They're just waiting for him to go ahead and think it. So they go, he thought it. So now they can take him down.
Remember, Michael added something really important here. Whole narratives, whole ways of thinking.
Yes, there's a huge hole in his way of thinking. That's it. I don't know why. Why is that the Shazam moment? You fucking tool. And I just don't get why they think this is a dunk. It makes no sense to me. And by the way, I watched that whole thing. Hold on, let's see. Well, I'd get into it, but Jesus. All right, I got to jump around because I'll just get caught up in that. So caught up in you, little derp.